Shifting gears, Congressman, last week the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin declined to comply with Congress's request to turn over the president's tax returns. So the House and Ways and Means Committee, of which you were a member, issued a subpoena on Friday suggesting that needed to happen. So two questions for you. Why? Talk to me why we have to, is that the step that Congress has to go through? But also, to this point, the White House has shown no inclination to cooperate whatsoever with any of these probes. So let's say they ignore the subpoena. What happens next?
Well, I think that our great chairman, Richie Neal, has gone methodically through this with some criticism from those who want to push this issue. I've only been working on it since February the 1st, 2017. I've stayed with it when we were in the minority. And we're following procedure under 61031F in the tax code. But we should remember, and the White House should remember, and Mr. Mnuchin should remember as our Treasury Secretary, that 7214 in the code is even clearer as to what happens if you do not hand over the tax returns. There are fines, there is jail, there is et cetera, et cetera. This is serious business. And if I think there's an issue out there, I believe there's an issue out there that's going to break down the great numbers of people who follow Mr. Trump, his base. It is this issue. Because what this issue is going to show is the fact that the president didn't pay his taxes. And when you don't pay your taxes, somebody else has to pay more. And if it's not fair, and he's bullied his way to the position, then I think those people are going to say, we've been had. And I think that's exactly what I think is going to happen.
Very quickly, you mentioned jail.
Yes.
Who's going to jail? The Treasury Secretary?
Well, I'm thinking that they have to take a look at 7214 to make sure that they understand what happens if they don't hand over. And this may wind up in a court. This may wind up in a court. But the law is on our side. Very clear, very succinct the language is. And I'm very proud to stand behind those two pieces in the tax code.
But 2 points, Congressman. First,
yes, sir.
Thank you. First, as the president likes to say, he got elected without releasing his tax returns, and he views that as the verdict of the American people on whether they care about his tax returns. I agree with you. If they get released, they're going to show he paid no taxes. We have the 9 years that the New York Times released that show he paid taxes in only 2 years, and it hasn't created a revolution yet. But back to 7214, as you call it, my understanding is that for Congress's subpoena to be enforced, it goes to the Justice Department traditionally. Right. They enforce it. So we have this position where the Trump Justice Department is being asked to go after the Trump Treasury. And I personally would be a little skeptical that Trump will ever allow his Justice Department.
Well, that puts us deeper into crisis then, for debating whether we are in a crisis or not. That puts us deeper into the crisis if we don't follow through in the law, if we do not carry out what the law says. And so then maybe Mr. Trump wants in his mind us to have a battle into the street over whether the law should be followed or not. Heaven forbid if that happens. But he talked about this at one time. I don't put anything past him. He's not the king. He's the president, duly elected, and he has to stand and follow law like you do, like I do, and like every one of his base have to. And when they find out what's in those tax returns, I can assure you, Steve, what we already know, it's not going to be very pleasant. And I can't wait for that day.
Wow. Congressman Bill Pascrell, thank you very much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you.
And still ahead this morning, the U.S. and China appear deadlocked on trade negotiations as President Trump's top economic advisor acknowledges that it is American consumers who end up paying for the administration's tariffs, unlike what the president said. Morning Joe is back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.